All right, if anyone has a question for Drew on Zoom, we'll do some Zoom questions and we'll do some questions in the room. Let's start with a question in the room. So, John, I'll give you my mic.
Hey, Drew. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good. We've talked a lot about aggressiveness and being aggressive and trying to kind of set the pace for the game and set the tempo. What does that do for you from a confidence standpoint to know that James and Andy and the coaching staff believes in you in that way?
I mean, I think it gives confidence to not only me but the whole offense. And I think it's our preparation throughout the week, the way we prepare, and how detailed we are with our openers. I know, for me, I always send my openers into Coach K and Danny just to let them know what my favorite plays are, and I talk to some of the other guys on the team to figure out what their favorite plays are, and just trying to, get the ball to our best playmakers early in the game and as often as we can. And I think it builds confidence in all of us because it's getting us all into a rhythm. And then we're able to take those shots down the field, hopefully within, the first 15 plays to hopefully just like create an explosive off that. But I think Coach K and Coach Franklin do a great job of preparing us for every look that we can get because, sometimes you call the shot plays and the shot's not always there just because the defense takes it away. So it's about what the next progression is in our reads and maybe getting it down to the second or third progression, and that could also create an explosive too.
Zoom, let's go to Audrey and Rich.
Hey, Drew, thanks for your time. I'm wondering how you kind of seen Amari develop, and what do you think a performance like this past game maybe can do for his confidence kind of moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think Amari has done a phenomenal job all year, and really since he's ever been on campus with me, since we enrolled in the same class and mid-year together. But I've just seen his confidence grow a ton over really the last year since Coach K's been here, and I think it started in spring with how he was performing during spring ball, and it transitioned into summer workouts and things like that, and also building that into fall camp. I think we've seen it throughout the season. Just his deep threat ability, obviously pushing the ball downfield with a guy that has just a God-given ability of just speed and running by anybody on the field. But I've felt like he's developed every route in his game. Like I don't think there's a route on the field that Amari can't run, and I think he's really grown as a blocker as well. And that's it's probably always hard for receivers just to grow in just because they're not used to it. And you also have to be willing to block. And I think that whole room has really embraced that rule, especially in our run game. Just hopefully getting our backs out in space and one-on-one, and just getting a piece of a guy or covering a guy up. So I think Amari has done a phenomenal job of just getting better in any way that he can. And I think just his work ethic and dedication has really helped him just grow into the player that he's becoming.
Let's stay on Zoom. We'll go Rich and then in the room to Bob.
Hey, Drew. What have you seen from Notre Dame's defense, and how are their blitz packages similar and different from Boise's?
I mean, I think, just turning on the tape, they're a very sound unit that also plays very hard and very physical. They're obviously very detailed and very well coached in what they do. There's not any MAs on film. Like they're not just leaving guys and dropping guys downfield in the pass game world. But I think it kind of starts up front. I think their D line is really good, but also their secondary is a really good secondary. Like there's obviously we're down to the final four teams, and there's not going to be a weak link on really any team. So, I think it's just about executing the game plan that the coaches are going to have for us. But, a lot of respect to these guys. They've accomplished a lot this year, have done a lot this year. And, statistically, their defense is really good. So it's going to be a really fun matchup.
Let's go to Bob and then deeper.
Hey, Drew. I wanted to ask you about Katron Allen. James just talked about it. He showed the run that got called back. Mm-hmm. But it was a pretty spectacular run and also very well blocked. Have you ever seen him run angrier than he did on that play? I mean, maybe in practice, because that would be. It looks like that would be one that's going to be tough to beat. And what did you think of it when you saw it live, and then when James broke it down?
Honestly, I think he runs like that every time he gets the ball, and I think that's just who he is by nature. He wants to punish whoever's in his way, and it's been like that since it's been on campus. I think the first time I ever saw it was definitely probably the first contact that we had in spring ball when we were freshmen, and him just seeking out contact. You don't see a lot of guys just go out and seeking contact like he does, but I think it's a really big energy boost to the whole team, especially on the offense and for the O-line. I know it's a huge boost when they see Katron and Nick being very physical on the perimeter and finishing runs. But, I think Katron's playing his best football right now. I think he looks really fast. He's doing a great job in pass pro, but I think Katron's game is really, taking the next step, and it's been fun to see that.
Drew, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Coach Franklin mentioned just a couple minutes ago that these two teams are built similarly, kind of from a program standpoint, but also on the field, they play a lot of press man coverage, something that your defense does, I'm sure you're familiar with. What have you learned about taking those shots against a defense that maybe wants to give you those vertical looks, but also knowing sometimes those are low percentage throws and they might be trying to give that to you for a reason? How do you balance that as the quarterback?
I mean, I think it's more of just feeling it out and just seeing like the different leverages that you get versus man coverage, and because sometimes there's winners on certain routes with the leverage that you have and that sort of thing. But I think Notre Dame in particular does a great job of making everything contested catches. Like you said, there's not many just open field or open throws downfield. And I think one thing that's different about their DB room in general is they're a pretty tall DB room and lengthy in terms of their arm size. I don't think they have a DB shorter than 6 foot, which is really not common, I think, in college football in general. And they're a physical group. Obviously, they're not overly physical group because I don't think they have many penalties on the year, so they're very smart and disciplined with how they play press man. And it's going to be a great week for the receivers just to show their ability to get off press man and create separation. But there's definitely a balance to it. But I think it's more of the feel and the type of play that you're calling, just knowing if you have any man resets backside that are maybe better versus man coverage and throwing that ball down the field. So I think it's kind of a play-by-play thing and just kind of feeling out the game and who's running those routes.
Let's go to Mike and then Mark. Right there, Mike. To the Ronan's got a
Thank you. Hey, Drew, your growth as far as a leader and emotion this year, how much of that is intentional things that you've worked on, and how much of that is organic as being the starter for a couple of years?
I think it's a combination of both. For me, like I know I've said it before, but I mean it's kind of how I've always been growing up and emotional and that sort of thing. And it comes from the competitive side of me. Like I'm extremely competitive in everything that I do. And I want to win and I want to be perfect in everything that I do. So it kind of stems from that. But I think I also had to be intentional about it because I think there's good times to show emotion like that, but there's also not like bad times to show it like that. Because playing quarterback, you definitely have to be cool, calm, collected. But I think the one thing that I was intentional about this year and talking with Danny, Coach K, and Coach Franklin is getting those emotional highs, but then coming right back down to just even and level-headed, and if something didn't go right, like let out the frustration, talk about what happened, and then just getting back to even-headed or level-headed again. So I think it's a balance to it, but for me, I've always been like that, so it's kind of just been I guess getting out there now like that.
Drew, could you remind us who your roommates are, and how did you end up with that cast of characters as a QB with all those big dudes?
Yeah, I mean, so I live with Drew Shelton and Dom Ruley, and I think it kind of started our freshman year together. So obviously, we're all in the same class. And we're both extremely close with Vanga. Vanga's on campus. We moved off campus, but I think we kind of just grew together. Drew was one of the first people I met when I committed, and his mom was one of the first families that we really met in terms of my family. And it's kind of weird that we both have younger sisters and they're both named Ryan, which is not common. so that was kind of cool. I think we always kind of hit it off, and then obviously when Vanga got here, he was later in Roley, at least in our class, and I think just trying to spend as much time around him as possible, just because he was moving over from Washington. Obviously, that's a extremely far place to travel, being away from home, and I know he's very close with his family and that sort of thing. So, and Dom was kind of always with us when he first got here too. So we kind of just grew together as freshmen, and then it turned into us living together, and they're great roommates. And I love being around them every day, and they're great teammates to have.
Hey, Drew.
I wanted to read back something that Franklin said about Nick Singleton just a few minutes ago. He said, quote, obviously we'd love to have him back in 2025, but if he decides to come out, we'll fight like heck to get him drafted as high as possible. I guess you never know how the staff's going to react when you have to get to that decision until you get to that decision. You just had a similar experience. What kind of feedback was the Penn State staff able to give generally to somebody who faces the end of the year, faces that kind of crossroads maybe in their career, and how does Penn State, I guess, look out for themselves, but also you can tell they're looking out for you at the same time?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's the feedback that we get is it's never going to be skewed one way or the other based on what Penn State wants you to do. Coach Franklin does a great job of being, giving all the information, as much information as possible to, guys that are, have those decisions to make. And I think the one thing that he does is he does a great job of just like not recruiting you, I guess. Like he's giving you all the information out there that there is, the good and the bad, and what other people are saying, and then his personal opinion, obviously. But he always tells you like, don't let what I say like affect that or anything like that. But I think for Nick, it's a good thing to have. Obviously, it's always good to have those decisions. It just means he's played well for his first 3 years here, but I know, him and me are wired the same ways in terms of like he's completely focused on Notre Dame and the task that we have at hand right now.
We'll do one more question from Zoom. Adam Rittenberg, ESPN.
Hey, Drew, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I just wondering, kind of going through a full season with Coach Kotelnicki, you guys do a lot of kind of unusual things, even in unusual times in games. I'm just wondering from your perspective, how much you've kind of gotten used to that and just not knowing, even in maybe from the outside, what might seem like an obvious run situation, you guys might do something different from formation or just, kind of things that are out of the ordinary. What's it just like being inside that for a full season?
I mean, I enjoy it a lot, and I think it's just because, it's a part of our identity. We want to cause stress in many different ways. Obviously, causing stress starts with the players and the type of, talent that we have on the offensive side of the ball, but it's also, making the defense communicate with, unbalanced and just unique formations that maybe they've never seen before or we've never put on tape. And it just causes a lot of stress on defenses, and they have to prepare for a lot of different exotic things. I personally like it a lot, and I think, the one good thing that we do with Coach K is he's always communicating like what type of or when those situations come up, like why he's calling it or when he's going to call it. Like it's a pretty big discussion in terms of, between the players, when we want certain plays to be called and the offensive staff as well. So, we're never caught off guard by when those play calls are called. And I think that's a real positive thing that Coach K does, is just preparing us for every possible situation that he can call those sorts of plays. And then also it's on us to execute those plays. But, sometimes like the defense falls into it like they kind of did last game with a couple of them. But, we live with those because when those hit, their momentum swings for us. And, I think we do a great job, and the offensive staff does a great job of putting us and designing those plays to, have the best success as possible.
Recording stopped.